The Portland Freedom Fund is a group that operates in our area, paying to bail out people in jail if they're black, brown, or indigenous. They're the ones who bailed out the man now accused of killing Rachel Abraham. We wanted to know who else they've helped and how that's worked out. Investigative reporter Kyla Boshi dug into the records.
On its Facebook page, the Portland Freedom Fund has photos of cash, checks, and receipts used to bail out inmates with the promise they'll return to court. But a KGW investigation found often that doesn't happen, and in some cases those defendants charged with serious offenses commit new crimes after being released. The most vivid example involved a Portland man accused of killing Rachel Abraham roughly 1 week after the Portland Freedom Fund bailed him out of jail. KGW reviewed 67 cases where Portland Freedom Fund President Amanda Trujillo bailed out defendants from Multnomah County Jail dating back to January of 2020. The records show Trujillo posted a total of $619,000 for those 67 defendants to walk, many of them facing serious charges including attempted murder, assault, and strangulation. The largest amount, $212,000, went toward the release of Malik Muhammad, a man later sentenced to 10 years in prison for throwing Molotov cocktails at police and smashing windows during Portland's racial justice protests. KGW's analysis showed that many of those freed by the Portland Freedom Fund violated their release agreement or never returned to court. 39 of the 67 cases resulted in a bench warrant for their rearrest. That's a 58% no-show rate, far higher than the statewide average of 7% failure to appear for people who posted security on felony charges. Former prosecutor Josh Markey argues defendants may be less compelled to show up when a third-party group is posting bail, instead of friends, family, or using their own money.
With the system we've had, there's been at least the social pressure on saying, look, grandma put up, $10,000, $20,000. You've got to show up. She could lose that. And now what we have is a situation where there are a number of groups that are saying, well, we'll put up the money, and we frankly don't care whether you show up in court or not.
Court records suggest that probation officers have grown frustrated with several defendants allowed to go free while awaiting trial after being bailed out of jail, courtesy of the Portland Freedom Fund. Court records describe how defendants removed a GPS ankle monitor, violated release agreement, or simply couldn't be located. In some cases, KGW found defendants bailed out by Portland Freedom Fund committed new crimes shortly after being released. One man allegedly threatened a construction worker at the Multnomah County Courthouse with a hammer just weeks after the Portland Freedom Fund posted his bail. In another example, a defendant charged with threatening people at 2 different Portland restaurants with a stick and smashing a window was bailed out by the Portland Freedom Fund on 4 different occasions. While out on the street awaiting trial, court records suggest he chased a couple. They were strangers with a knife yelling, "I'm going to get you. I'm going to kill you," followed by a racial slur. There's now a warrant for his arrest. On its Facebook page, the nonprofit explains that the Portland Freedom Fund seeks to limit the number of persons held pretrial solely for inability to pay the bail as determined by the court. Fulfilling requests for bail assistance are made on an individual basis with a focus on reducing harm. Retired Multnomah County Circuit Court Judge Edward Jones argues it's unfair to criticize the Portland Freedom Fund for which defendants are released or the outcome of their cases.
So how accurate do they have to be 100% accurate? They have to be 100% accurate in guessing which guys are going to be dangerous when a judge can't do it?
The retired judge says the bail system itself should be the focus. It needs reform.
The whole bail process is not a satisfactory way of thinking about release. Because how much money you have or how much money your friends have doesn't tell me anything about how dangerous you are.
The Portland Freedom Fund is not the only third-party group bailing people out of jail. But after the tragic death of a Portland woman, this nonprofit has drawn greater scrutiny of its operation and who it's paying to set free. It is worth noting some of the people bailed out by the Portland Freedom Fund did appear in court as required, and at least 2 defendants that we know of had their charges dismissed.
Super interesting, Kyle. And that number you mentioned in the beginning, $619,000, is it really that much, or is there some money from the beginning that sort of rolls over to the next people as those folks get their case heard?
No, it really is that number. They're literally writing checks or providing cash to bail people out each and every time. If somebody doesn't show up in court as required and there's a bench warrant, they forfeit that money, so they lose it in the end. So there's a lot of money involved here. I got to tell you, as an investigative reporter, that's where the curiosity comes in. As we're told, follow the money, and we certainly hope to do that.
And I asked you in the hallway, but where is this money coming from?
Yeah, good question. Largely from donors, at least that's what we're led to believe. They have a real online presence, taking in donations, that type of thing. But they haven't filed the necessary paperwork as a nonprofit with the state of Oregon. According to the Attorney General's office, they've asked for that paperwork and are waiting for it.
All right, and let's get into the process. How did you find these cases, and how did you go about this?
Yeah, to be clear, we looked at 67 of those cases. There are likely more. The Portland Freedom Fund, they suggest that they bailed out a lot of people. In this case, the reporting, it really required a lot of time in front of the computer, to be honest with you. The courts were able to provide me with a list of cases where the Portland Freedom Fund president bailed people out. Basically, I went through every one of those cases, looked at how much money was paid, when, and then what happened after that. It's kind of like reading a play-by-play of a court case. Often the docket would show a bench warrant calling for the person to be rearrested because they failed to show up in court or maybe violated part of their release agreement. In several instances, I kept searching after that to see if they'd been arrested for any other crimes during the time of their release. You know, as I mentioned, we still have a lot of questions about this nonprofit. I reached out to the organization today. We didn't hear back, but we're going to keep digging.
Yeah, good for you. That's what we love about you, Kyle. Thank you very much.